Okay, welcome back to another segment of the Women in Publishing Summit. I'm Alexa Bigworth, your host and CEO of Write, Publish, Sell, a company that helps lead and support authors through the writing, publishing, and selling of their books. We have a very, very fantastic topic to talk about today, and that is surrounding mindset and fear and doing the things that you need to do to get over those, to just push through and do your writing. This is a great topic. I wrote a book about it called Ditch the Fear and Just Write It. And today we are getting deep into this topic with Naima Robert. Naima is an award-winning author, the editor and publisher, and trainer-in-chief at muslimawriters.com. Did I say that right? It's Muslima. That's, when you add extra words in there, it just throws me off. I'm just kidding. I love your short and sweet and succinct bio there, but would you like to expand on that?
Yes, I could do that. Okay, well, it's an honor for me to be here. And, as I was telling you, I first came into your world through last year's summit. And so it's wonderful for me to be here as part of this summit this year. I've been writing books for almost 20 years. I started writing children's books when my son was about 1 year old. And the main thing that pushed me to write was that I didn't see books in the library about children like him. And that just fired me up with a passion to represent my family and other families in children's books in the same almost magical way. Yeah. It's easy to find books about other cultures that are kind of, explaining they do this and they do that, and this is what they wear, this is what they eat. It's quite common to find those types of books. But what I was looking for were books that had heart, books that had soul, books with beautiful illustrations, books full of wonder. And I just had this crazy idea that maybe I could write a few of those. So that's what I started doing, and I was fortunate enough to find a publisher pretty much straight away that I worked with for many years on multicultural children's books. And then after that, I was invited to write a memoir about my life and about how I became Muslim and what it's like being a Muslim woman. And that was with Random House. So that was an interesting experience. And then I went into YA fiction. So I've written 6 YA novels that have been published across the world. And now I get to write books and work with emerging writers. And it is just the best thing in the world. I'm just so blessed.
It is a lot of fun, especially when you have a love for writing, like you clearly do, cross genre, across all kinds of things. Like, it is a really, really great part to be the part of someone else's process. But I am sure, as with my experience with writers, you come across lots of fear and resistance. A lot of writers I have noticed tend to really resist, like, pushing through that. So that's what you're going to talk about in your seminar today, correct?
Yes, that's right. I mean, when I first started sort of dabbling in this community and sort of bringing out the women who wanted to write, because there wasn't really a space where you could find them en masse. So I went through a process of bringing them out and listening to them and, trying to probe to see what their issues were and how I could be of help. And so we did this survey, and the survey created this word cloud. And you know what word clouds are? They're actually so cool. But, the word cloud was full of all sorts of words. But right there, smack in the middle, huge, was the word fear.
Fear, absolutely.
And when I went through the responses, fear came up in so many different guises, under so many different circumstances, for so many different reasons. And so, like you probably are aware, I realized that tackling that fear, disarming that fear, was probably the first great work that we had to do together before we could even start talking about writing habits and, building your skills and working on your first book. It was to disarm the fear. So that's what I'll be speaking about today.
I love this topic. I love it so much. And really, there's a lot of things that come along with writing a book, and there's a lot of ways that you can get caught up in being afraid. You know, what if my writing's not good enough? What if I'm writing a nonfiction and people don't think I'm the expert? What if nobody buys my book? God forbid, what if somebody gives me a 1-star review? I joke with my authors and the clients that I work with that you're not a real author until you've gotten a 1-star review.
I co-sign on that. I agree. I totally agree.
And you know what? I just want to say something about that. 1-star reviews, yes, okay. So we get all caught up in reviews and our reviews getting bumped down and everything like that. But I actually find 1-star and 2-star reviews to be very, very, very helpful. 1, you see what somebody really hated about your book. 2, there may not be anything that you can do to change that. I mean, if you've written a book about milking cows and someone is absolutely opposed to milking cows, then you can't fix that by, you know, working on your book. But it can show somebody else who might buy your book that it's not the book for them. And then you don't have another person leaving you a 1-star review because they bought the book thinking it was about something else and, you know, being disappointed. So you should not be afraid of 1-star reviews. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts your heart.
You know what I like to say? I say to my philosophy is that, you know, when you're going through the creation process of the book and, you know, you're working on the idea, you're fleshing it out, you're researching it, you're dreaming it, you're doing it in your head, you're seeing it like a film, all that good stuff, especially fiction writers, and you get your first draft done. I tell my students from that moment on, there is a separation because it's not a baby, it's a book.
Right.
And so you need to find that distance from the work to be able to say, yes, I put my heart and soul into it, but that is reflective of me, and it's mine. It's mine to cherish. It's mine to love. But it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be everyone's cup of tea. It's true for me. It's good enough for me. It's a reflection of what I believe and what I value and what I want to put out into the world. And trust me, it's not going to be for everyone. But that's okay. Right. You need to have that sense of separation. You know, it's not a judgment on you personally. And even if it is, so what?
Right.
Who cares, right?
Right. That's hard to get to, though. It's hard to get to the point where you're like, so what? But we really need to teach a course on how to build thicker skin as a writer.
It really is tough. I know. I think I might be a bit militant on this, but I do believe that the people who need to hear your message will hear your message. It will land for them. Right. And the people who don't need your message or to whom it doesn't apply will either walk on by or will look at you like, what was that? Right. But it wasn't meant for them. And that's okay. You know, that's what I think.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right. So you are putting together a seminar that you've already recorded, and we're just going to add it right on into here. But before we go switch into that presentation, I would love for you to have the opportunity to talk about your website and what you're doing with it. I see that it's coming soon, so you must have some big stuff in the works. What's happening? And do you primarily work with female Muslim writers, or do you work with anyone and you just, tell us about it?
We have a membership site, and I'm so excited about the membership site because it's literally, we take the writers through the stages, and we've named the stages: the daring stage, the sharing stage, then you go on to building, then publishing, then I think after that is branding, then launching. So we give them resources and training for each of those stages, and there's like a roadmap, for people to know what the next step is, because sometimes when you look at you work with people who put books together. So you imagine somebody who's literally in the daring stage where they haven't even had the courage to say, I'm a writer. So we don't even go further than that. You stay right there. Let's work on mindset. Let's work on confidence. Let's get you to that place where you can own your story and you can give yourself permission to write. Then the next step after that is to build a regular writing habit. Take that off. The next step is to share something, so we try to take a step-by-step approach to it so that it doesn't seem too overwhelming. So that's the membership site. Then we have courses. We have a fiction masterclass, a children's book masterclass. The Ultimate Muslim Writers Masterclass is a foundational course. And I guess what I did with that course is I was teaching my philosophies about mindset and habit, and the 6 steps to kind of going from idea to finished manuscript. And then we have a nonfiction masterclass coming up, and then we have coaching, and we have summits and challenges and competitions and book awards and all sorts of cool stuff. So the website is nothing.
No, it just says coming soon with pictures of 5 or 6 beautiful women on it. So
our WIP right there.
Right. So, but seriously though, all of this stuff sounds amazing. Do you have to be a Muslim to participate?
No. Okay. It's open to anybody. I think the main thing is that and I'll be honest with you, I had this as well myself when I started writing, because in general in society, there is a feeling that sort of Muslim values are not necessarily welcome. Mm-hmm. So Muslims who kind of espouse those values don't always feel comfortable and accepted in the mainstream. Yeah. And so that confidence isn't there. That confidence to just write your story and send it to Pan Macmillan. It's not there. Because already the mindset is they don't want to hear my story. Right. So one of the things that we do and that we're actively doing this year is doing what we're doing now, building links with, people from all kind of walks of life and all over the communities, because I want to open it out and I want to open my writers out to the opportunities out there for collaboration, for publication, and even the whole movement towards diverse voices and more diversity in books, etc. We are educating our writers about this and building their confidence so that they can go out there and tell whatever story it is that they want to tell and not feel almost like an inferiority complex, that they're not good enough to compete, or they're not good enough to collaborate, or not good enough to contribute on that stage. So again, that's a lot of the work that we're doing this year. And we're bringing in partners from all over, especially to open this community out so that they have the skills and the confidence and the links to go out there and do amazing things.
I think it's fabulous. I mean, that's part of the reason why I narrowed it down to just a Women in Publishing Summit, because I feel the same way in general about women, but I totally agree with the segmenting it even farther down. Last year we did an interview with Nathan Caro Frechette, and he is a transgender man, and we talked a lot about that segment of the population and the need for good support at that level too. So I completely get it. It's important to find community. I mean, writing, as we just discussed in this whole thing about fear, like there's enough fear just as a person who just wants to sit down and put their heart and soul in front of the entire world, so to be able to find a community and support at a lower level is even better. I hope you have your website up soon, because it sounds like what you're doing, so how do people find these things if it's not available on the website?
Well, we have a Facebook group, which is we have about 2,600 members.
Good for you.
And so they're doing their thing. Really, I'll be honest with you, Alexa, we use a lot of landing pages. So whenever we have courses, etc., it's always via landing pages. But by the time you guys are watching this, there will be a beautiful little website that you can all have a look at, and we will have. I think we're going into Instagram next month, and we have this big challenge. It's a crazy, crazy challenge, but our goal is to get 10,000 women to commit to writing for 10 minutes a day for 10 days. Woo, that's a big goal. You know that you're gathering, it's like Avengers Assemble, we're like gathering all the troops and bringing in all the favors and saying, will you be on a partner? Will you be a partner? Will you be a partner? Because I know so many women have this dream of writing.
Yes.
But they never even get started. Yeah. And I always tell them, you think you don't have time to write, but you can find 10 minutes a day.
Yeah,
and absolutely. If you found 10 minutes a day to work on your dream, within a year, you'll have something. So start with that, if nothing else. So we've got this huge challenge in April. So I'm not sure when this is coming out, but, who knows? We may have an update.
This will be March, so we will definitely, you have a link for registration by the time this goes live. That will be in the notes below us here. I think that's fantastic. And it's so true. And it's like anything else, like you just have to, sometimes it literally is that small of a baby step. of just saying for 10 days, I can write for 10 minutes. I remember interviewing somebody for my podcast about meditation and lifestyle changes and, bringing all those things in there. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't sit down and find 20 minutes to meditate. And he was like, okay, so let's do it this way. Tomorrow, your meditation is going to be before you get out of your bed, you're just going to take one deep breath. Can you do that?
Yeah.
I was like, I can do
now that's a baby step.
That is a baby step. Sometimes we need that. All right.
It's true.
Well, this is wonderful. It's been great chatting with you. I can't wait to watch your full seminar because, as I said, this is such an important topic. Really applaud you and congratulate you for all the success that you've had with your writing and with growing this incredible community. And I'm so thrilled to put you in front of our entire community.
I'm so excited, and I've told you I'm such a big fan. So me, I'm just here like, oh my God, yay!
Well, I am now a big fan of yours, so thank you.
Well, the feeling is mutual, so yes. Inshallah, this is going to be a good thing. But no, it's wonderful. Just the writer community in general, because we know we're on the same journey.
Right.
We know how it feels. So,
exactly.
You're always going to have that kind of, camaraderie because we're all on the same journey. It doesn't matter anything about any kind of background you could choose. If you're on the writer's journey, you know what that looks like. And it looks the same for everybody. So, that's an amazing way to bring us all together. So really, really, really pleased to be speaking with you. And I can't wait for more and more of these collaborations in the future.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Greetings and welcome. My name is Naima B. Robert, and I'm an award-winning author, editor, publisher, and poet. And I am absolutely stoked to be speaking to you as part of the Women in Publishing Summit. The theme of this summit is an amazing one. How to change the world with your words. And indeed, we all know that words have the power to change the world. Everything we share, everything we put out there to inspire, to command, to challenge, to motivate, to comfort, those words have power. But in order to be able to tap into that power, we must first claim them. And this can actually be the biggest obstacle that any of us face as we contemplate this writer's journey. So if you're at the beginning of that journey and you've been thinking about writing for a while, or you've been dreaming about writing, or you have a book inside you that is aching to come out, then you are at the start of the writer's journey. Because that's what writing is. It's a journey. We go through stages as writers. So there's the beginning stages, the daring stage, I like to call it. After the daring stage, there's the sharing stage, when we pluck up the courage to actually let others into what we've been writing. And after we share little bits here and there, we might be ready to start writing a real book. And then we go into the building stage, and we're building something amazing, something magnificent. It's a project, it's real, okay? After the building stage, we move on to the publishing stage, the branding stage, the launching stage. But what I want to speak to you about today is that beginning stage, the stage I call the daring stage. And why do I call it the daring stage? Well, it's simply this. All of us on this journey, no matter where we are, have a constant companion. This companion might be silent or extremely vocal, but the companion is with us nonetheless. And that companion is fear. And at the daring stage is when the fear is the strongest. The fear never goes away. The fear does not go away. No matter whether you've shared, you've built, you've published, you've launched, you've branded, you know, wherever you are on this journey, there is always that companion lurking around. Sometimes comes to the front, sometimes slips to the back, but fear is our constant companion. And so what I would like to talk about in this presentation is what to do with that fear if you know that is one of the biggest things holding you back right now. And the thing is, the fear that we have in that daring stage, it wears multiple masks, okay? I know this because I work with Muslim women who want to write, who have a dream of writing and sharing their words with the world. And I know from all the things that they've told me, that word fear looms large. And it wears so many colors. Fear of being judged, fear of not having any good ideas, fear of what other people will say, fear of not being good enough, fear of failure, even fear of success. And so what I teach my students and what I work through with my clients is this. We know the fear is going to be there at the start. And many of us know deep inside that it's only fear that's stopping us from actually writing and building towards something amazing. And so I give them 3 steps. I give them 3 tasks to do while they're in the daring stage to put fear in its place and push through. And the first thing that I teach them is to give themselves permission. Yes, you must give yourself permission to tell your story. A lot of writers, in the beginning stages, spend a lot of time thinking about publishers and editors and whether anybody will read their story. And, you know, there's a lot of focus on the outside. There's a lot of focus on external validation and external acceptance. And what I teach my students is writing must start from within. You must give yourself permission because that is all you need to be able to write. You don't need anyone else's permission. You don't need any gatekeepers, any authority figures' permission to actually write words on a paper, to actually express your ideas, to recall your experiences, to, you know, be creative. None of that requires outside permission. And so I encourage them to firstly own your own voice, own your story, and give yourself permission to write. And the easiest way to give yourself permission is when you commit to a private writing habit in the daring stage. Why private? Because it removes the need for anything to do with anyone else, okay? Because I believe that if whatever you're writing for, whether it's catharsis, whether it's some kind of healing, whether it's working through issues, whether it's intellectual activity or a creative activity, whatever it is that you're writing for, private writing will do the job. The act of writing itself will be the healing. The act of writing itself will be the catharsis. The act of writing will be the creative outlet. And therefore, you do not need to bring anyone into that equation. This is between you and your paper, and that's it. So first thing is give yourself permission. Allow yourself to push past that fear and write in a private space. The next thing I tell them is to create a safe space for the writing. And this is, again, to do with privacy. That space when we are first exploring our writing voice, exploring stories, exploring experiences, is a delicate phase. And so what I tell my students to do is make it private. You don't have to share your writing with anyone. No one has the right to your words except those who you decide to give it to. So again, it removes that fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough by other people's standards, or fear of not getting published, or fear of nobody buying your book. We're not even at that stage, okay? Let's just get into our lane. Right now, we are trying to give ourselves space to write. We're giving ourselves permission. We are opening up those writing cords, just like if you were doing, choir practice and you open up the vocal cords. Right now, we're opening up those writing channels. We're greasing those writing wheels. We're working the writing muscles. And we don't need anyone's permission to do that. And we do not need anyone's involvement at all at this stage. So we want to create a safe space where we protect our writing as we are building up our muscles, as we are building up our strength, as we're building up our skill. We create a safe space for the writing. And then the third thing that I tell them is to shut out the noise. And what do I mean by shut out the noise? Again, shutting out the external noise of what will people think, what will people, make of this, or will people like it, will people enjoy it, will anybody buy it? Shut all that out. And very importantly, shut out the internal noise. Shut out the internal editor, the internal critic, the inner mean girl, all of those voices inside you that are telling you you don't have the right to tell this story, you don't have any talent, who do you think you are to tell this story? There are so many books out there, why would you add another one to it? Why are you wasting your time doing this? Who told you you could do this anyway? Third step, shut out that noise. Push through the negative self-talk that so much of us have, and we all have it, no matter where we are at the stage. And that's why I preface this whole talk talking about the whole writer's journey, because when you pass and you break through the daring stage and you are now at a place where you can share your work and you've plucked up the courage, really, the courage that it takes to put your work out in front of people. Once you've done that, you're now past the daring stage, you're in the sharing stage, and you're going to move on. But the fear may never leave you. The negative self-talk may never leave you. And so what we do as writers is that we write anyway. Even when we're afraid, we write. Sometimes, especially when we're afraid, we write. I can remember so many times when I was writing novels, and I would get to a stage in the story where my heart would start to beat faster and I'd actually start to become nervous for my characters. And I kind of know what needs to happen in the story, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to put my characters through that. I don't want my readers to see me telling this story. I don't want my readers to feel bad. I don't want them to think badly of me. Like, who am I writing this for? But I had to do it anyway, because that's what the story required. And every single time I have written something, in spite of the fear, in spite of the doubt, in spite of the discomfort, every time I've done that and pushed past that internal battle and pushed through it, I've managed to write something that readers have connected with, audiences have connected with. Because sometimes it's your courage that gets passed on through the words. It's your courage as a writer, as a storyteller, your courage as a human being, passing on this wisdom, passing on this experience, passing on this creative genius, whatever it is you write, whoever it is that you write for, it's your courage in passing on that story that causes the transformation in others. When we stick to the safe zone, stay safe subjects, safe storylines, safe characters, guess what we end up with? Boring work that doesn't connect with anyone. Because I think today, more than probably ever in history, our readers want us to be real. They need us to be real. So for our own development as writers, and for the sake of our readers, once we get to that stage, we must embrace the fear. We must embrace the fear and do it anyway. Don't ever think that you will reach a stage where there is no more fear, because it doesn't happen. And the thing is, if you did reach a stage where everything you did as part of your writing no longer excited that thrill or those butterflies and that kind of tension that you have, or even any kind of fear, then I would say maybe you are playing too small. Maybe you're aiming too low. Maybe there's something inside you that you haven't tapped into yet. Whether it's the topic of your book, whether it's the characters you're writing about, whether it's the audience that you're speaking to, or it could be the book launch, or it could be, where you see this book going. Anytime we step out of our comfort zone, we start moving, okay? And that moving out of the comfort zone is scary. It excites fear within us, but it's a good fear. It's a fear that makes us move. And as writers, we don't need to try and hide from fear. We don't need to try and put fear in a box and put it on the shelf, or think that one day we will no longer feel afraid. It doesn't always work that way. In fact, I would guess that most of the time, it does not work that way. And it's okay. We embrace the fear. We hold the fear in one hand, and we hold our creativity and our positivity and our determination in the other hand, and we get to work. So I hope that those 3 points of giving yourself permission, creating a safe space, and shutting out the noise will be helpful and useful to you if you're at the daring stage. And if you've passed the daring stage, then I hope you will remember your sister Naima B. Roberts' message about embracing the fear, stepping out of the comfort zone, and creating something truly amazing. Thank you so much.